What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall market. I'm going to break down what's going on with the economic calendar approaching tomorrow, what you should be watching for as time goes on. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So looking at NIO, we have a head and shoulders like structure that is developing, and overall, there is a risk of downside in the future. However, for the short term, we are seeing some buyers trying to defend the $5 area, which could lead us to being range bound for an extended period of time before we get another big move. So for now, we do look pretty range bound. I think there's a good chance we do continue this going into early next week, or not next week. I'm sorry, this week it's going to continue. But then moving forward, things could shift, and that's why I want to break down some key levels. But I first want to talk about some data real quick, then I'll talk about NIO and the share price. Just know that in the US, tomorrow is going to be what's known as Veterans Day. So we're going to see the bonds market being closed, which could slow down volume that we get overall in the broader markets. However, the New York Stock Exchange is going to be open. So just keep that in mind, guys. There's going to be trading tomorrow, but there's going to likely be less volume, and there might be a little bit of downwards pressure because of that. We don't really have any data coming out until like Tuesday, so it's going to be a very quiet data day. For um, uh, right now, we also have greed making up the majority of sentiment as the market's continuing to get bought back up. But I do have one concern. That's the fact that SPY and the QQQ have hit some tough resistance. The same thing can be said about our other ETFs and index funds. So we'll be watching to see if we could break past resistance or not and watch the kind of reaction we end up getting. Momentum remains in favor of extreme greed as there's still a lot of buyers defending, continuing to push the share prices higher. And the put to call option ratio remains neutral as it's continuing to dip a little bit, once again signifying that we saw a lot of the puts that were being bought being closed after the election, leading to a miniature short squeeze. Now, this could continue, but I just want to say we're at some tough resistance, so we have to be careful. The VIX has dumped quite a bit. We'll be watching to see if it gets a bounce off this support or not. So just want to call out all of that. So now when it comes to other pieces of data, just know this. Tomorrow we have Monday.com announcing earnings and very, very minor retail. There's nothing else that's too crazy coming out for Monday. For Tuesday, we have Shopify, the Home Depot, Hertz, and a few others, not to mention SoundHound. For Wednesday, we have a couple of them that coming out very minor stuff, and Cisco. For Thursday, we have Walt Disney, which is going to be the biggest one of the week. Not to mention Alibaba on Friday. It's going to be very big for the Chinese tickers, so it could have an effect on NIO. But that's all I'm seeing for the earnings calendar. Just keep in mind, that's all I'm seeing for the earnings calendar for now. But just know that when it comes to the economic calendar, for Tuesday, we have Cash Kari giving a speech. I also want to remind you all that we have CPI on Wednesday, not to mention Jerome Powell giving a speech on Thursday. So we have quite a few things coming out on Wednesday and Thursday. Just keep that in mind. Just want to give you guys one more heads up about that. So as far as NIO is going, there was some negative news that came out just yesterday. The Swiss National Bank has cut its stake in NIO by 67% in Q3, according to the next filing report. Not the best of news. They basically lowered their holding from 3.08 million shares at the end of the second quarter to 1.005 million shares as of September 30th, representing a sale of 2.07 million shares, the largest one since it opened its position back in 2019. So a little bit more negative news has come out because of this. Could lead to a bit of a slowdown, so just keep that in mind. This is a little bit negative news. They are reducing their stake, and that might lead to some downwards pressure for the share price. So I just want to call that out. I also want to call out the fact that despite that, we're still seeing a lot of these power swap stations continuing to emerge in Norway and different parts of Europe as the community is continuing to build. And then volume is only at about 57 million. And then we also have some news. Let me just look up NIO real quick. That NIO overall has its earnings very, very on par with many expectations. We're hoping we see some profits very soon. Financials are not that bad. And then seasonality suggests that November's tend to be a little bit weaker. December's are okay, but January's do tend to be stronger historically because of NIO Day. So we'll see how things end up going. What do I see for the share price? We're range bound. Every time we hit below 5, we get bought back up. Every time we hit 5.3 to 5.4, we tend to get rejected. So we're stuck in the middle going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Now, because we came very close to 5, we could attempt to rebound right here up to this 5.3 area. And then we'll see if we get a rejection between 5.3 and 5.4. I think that we're just going to remain range bound for now, but then we'll see how things end up going from here. So look for an attempt to rebound tomorrow morning, a small one. We could be seeing 5.3 or so, but then I anticipate it's going to reject again and make its way down because of this news about the Swiss National Bank selling their stake. So that could lead to a little bit of a dip. I wouldn't be surprised if that were to happen. We are going to likely rebound a little bit in the morning before we continue to dip, so just keep that in mind. As far as SPY goes, I'm seeing the same thing essentially. We basically have been pushing very nicely, but I do want to call out the fact that 600 is going to be a tough resistance. We may pump a little bit closer to 600, but watch to see if we break this. If we break 600, we could push for 602. If we don't hold above 600, if we just come close to touching and reject, we're looking for 597 is our main support. We got to hold above that. If not, I see us dipping all the way down to about 595. If not, down to this next imbalance towards the 592 area. Excuse me. So I think that there is going to be a risk of rejection on SPY, and we could be kind of pushing a bit before we start dipping back down for the mid 590s. So just keep that in mind, guys. There could be a little bit of a pump and a rejection. For ES, we basically pushed for the 6,040 area. Now we're looking at 6,000 as our main support. If 6,000 fails us, I think we're going to be dipping back down for 59.80, then all the way back down to 59.50. However, what I think is going to happen is we're going to be testing 6,000 just to see if it holds or not. If it holds, we could try to go a little bit higher. If not, we might be dipping a little bit. I do think there's a risk of us dipping close to 6,000 at the very least. Might be a small dip because of the fact that it's Veterans Day. There's going to be less volume, so it wouldn't be a surprise to me. We could still bounce later on, but look for a little bit of a dip before we try to continue to bounce. For others out there, such as Nvda, we're looking a little bit weaker here. We might attempt to rebound, make a lower high near 148, but then we could continue to dip lower, back down to 146 and 145 as our potential targets. So look for a little bit of a rejection here. We could be dipping back down for the 145s. I think there's a risk of us coming back down, so give this the time it needs, and we will see how things end up going. As far as Bitcoin, excuse me, as far as Bitcoin goes, we hit 80,000, remaining very, very bullish in this time. So we'll have to see if it could hold above that tomorrow. I think it's going to continue this uptrend very, very nicely. If we hold above 80,000, we're easily going to be going back up to 82,500. So keep that in mind. For Tesla, we remain more bullish. There's no sign of rejection yet. If we do end up getting below our support around the 315-ish area, we could be looking for 310, then eventually back down to 300 as our supports. For now, there's no sign of any kind of rejection on Tesla, so I can't turn bearish quite yet. For now, it looks like it wants to be retesting the highs up here around 330. Maybe it goes a little bit higher than that, but then as time goes on, it might slow down, just start to consolidate around 325 to 330 for some time. That's the most likely move. But for now, just know that there's no sign of a big rejection as long as we're above 310. And this could remain bullish for now. So there's no sign of it rejecting yet. If we do lose 310 tomorrow, then yes, we could turn a little bit down. But overall, Tesla remains very strong and bullish. For NQ, we remain bullish, but just know this: we're hitting the 21,250 area, which is becoming a tough support, a tough resistance, excuse me. We could attempt to push a little higher to about 21,300, but if we can't hold above that, I do see a risk of us coming back down to 21,000 flat. So look for a pop and drop all the way back down to 21,000. We'll see how things end up going. So give this the time it needs. For the QQQ, we reach basically this 515 area. We have to see if we break past that or not. Otherwise, there's a risk of us coming back down to about 510. So I might be dipping back down to this 510 area, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not. But I think we might be dipping a little bit lower, so give this some more time. For Aapl, we are kind of stuck in the middle. We could be dipping a little bit. I think Apple's bullish, has a nice accumulation here, forming like a cup and handle, but we might be forming a handle here before it tries to continue to push higher. So it might be dipping a little bit back down to 226 flat before it tries to bounce, so just keep that in mind. Let me go over just a couple more. Excuse me. IWM trying to push higher, but it does have tough resistance at 238. If we hold above 238 for at least 4 hours tomorrow, we're looking for a target of 240 plus. If we end up rejecting, we're looking for 235 as our support. If that fails us, we're dipping back down for 233. So watch to see what happens if we touch 238, then we reject and start dipping back down for 235. And we'll see how things end up going. We're kind of range bound for now. So for the 238, it's going to dip back down as the most likely move. For Coinbase, coin is looking more bullish. We have 275 as our main resistance to watch for. If we end up losing 270, though, we're going to be dipping back down for 268. So watch and see a little push right over here towards 275 to 280, and we'll see how things end up going. But overall, coin is looking a little bit more bullish. I think this might attempt to push a little bit higher with Bitcoin, especially because Bitcoin is gapping up. So I think we might be looking for 275 as our next potential target than 280. Amazon's a little bit weaker here. We need to try to hold above 208. Otherwise, I see a risk of us getting closer to 205 before it tries to bounce. Might dip a little bit more before it tries to rebound again. Meta may dip a little bit. We're going to be looking for basically 585 is our potential target, if not a little bit lower, and we'll see how things end up going. Microsoft may dip a little bit more. We're looking for basically 420 or below before it tries to rebound, so give it a little bit more time. And Google might also dip a bit. We could be attempting to get back closer to about 178 before it tries to bounce again. With that being said, guys, if you guys look at the VIX is near 14 to 15, which is where it tends to bounce. Look, if you look at this, right, it hit the 14 area, it bounced, hit 15, bounced, hit 15, bounced, hit 15, bounced. It's now at 14.96, so it might attempt to rebound just a tiny bit because the market might pull back just a little bit before it tries to bounce again. But I do think we're kind of due for that, and I think that we're hitting the psychological 600 on SPY, so that could add to some downwards pressure for the broader markets. As far as NIO goes, look for a little rebound tomorrow morning after how much downside we saw on Friday. Might be trying to retest the 5.16 area, if not a little bit higher than that. But then we might get a rejection if the whole market dips and it might start slowing down. So watch and see a little bit of a dip that's coming after that. But with that being said, guys, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys so much for listening. Please have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one going into tomorrow. Thank you for listening, and peace out.